welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 165 with Jules O'Laughlin, ASC ACS, DP of The Old Man. Enjoy.
As a DP, I should have lit this better, but I'm in a rental in Vancouver. So
Sure.
But you tell me, like, if it's,
Nah, it'll be fine. I think people like it when it's a little, I said this actually on yesterday's interview that Bob Richardson called in from Paris, right. and he was in just a hotel, and it was like midnight or something. So he was only lit by like the screen.
Yeah, right.
So no, there's no expectations here.
And all that white, right? The white hair.
Yeah.
You probably couldn't even see his eyes. Right?
Yeah, he was just popping off the background.
Yeah,
you should. I mean, like this whole set, it's not even really a setup. What I did, I just took some 251 and just stretched it across my window.
Oh yeah, nice.
And then I have like the little slatty blinds, so like depending on how bright it is outside, I can control it with the little.
Yeah. Well, you're looking good, bro. I was going to say you've been beautifully lit.
It's what's funny is when I started this, the C500 had just come out.
Yeah.
And I got serial number 8. Like I was the first one to have that thing. Wow. And then COVID happened. So it ended up being my webcam for like 2 years.
Yeah.
It's got like, I don't know, 1,000 operating hours and maybe like 4 shooting hours by the time I actually pulled it out to use it.
I love it. Yeah.
It was
quality.
Yeah. I you know what? I was actually just hanging out with my friend Nathan Haugard. And right. Do you know him?
I don't know Nathan. No.
So he's about my age. He worked on a couple of the Avatar films in the like 3D space. And I had saw that you had shot a documentary with James Cameron on a 3D Red 1 rig.
Yeah, that's right. Well, in fact, not only was I at sea with James for 3 months on the Mermaid Sapphire, because I was shooting the 3D documentary for Deep Sea Challenge.
Right.
Also my executive producer on a 3D action film that I shot some years ago in Warner Brothers Studios in Queensland. And we shot with the Pace Fusion system that they'd used to shoot Avatar. So I'm well-versed in 3D shooting and, I hadn't done that for a while.
I was going to say, they put so much effort into it, and we were like, we're going to do that 3 times.
Yeah, that's right. Well, of course, he's still doing it now, right? With
Avatar, yeah.
With Avatar. So he's still a big proponent of it and does it so well. And hey, the numbers don't lie, right? The box office numbers.
Well, and like watching like Avatar 2 specifically, like almost I don't know where the VFX or whatever, the digital ends and the live action begins. Like I don't know how much of it is actually, because Nathan was saying, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but like a lot of it is reference. Like his job was just the reference stuff. Yeah. So they'd be underwater or whatever, but it's not like none of that's actually being used.
Yeah.
It's just, and but I just thought it was fascinating to do all that work for a doc when it's like documentary is all about like speed and efficiency.
Yeah.
And then you're over here like, let's make the most encumbered thing possible.
Like I remember there were days where I was in a Zodiac, and shooting with a 3D, like an over-under or beam splitter rig, which was really heavy in a Zodiac. And I remember this one day we were shooting and the key grip said to the gym, because of course we're on this expedition ship that's normally used for mining or sea oil exploration or something like that, and we had the sub on the back of the ship, and they'd lift it off and plonk it in the water, and then we'd jump in Zodiacs and had cameras on board the main ship and had an underwater camera and the whole kit and caboodle. And there was this day that we were doing a test launch. And so they put the sub in the water, and the seas were really heavy. And one of the hairy things, of course, is going from the expedition ship, which is this really big bloody ship, into a Zodiac when the sea's doing this. And key grip says to me in front of Jim, listen, the sea's too rough. We can't get the 3D rig into the Zodiac. And Jim's going, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, I'm worried that we'll drop it overboard and then it'll go. I don't give a fuck. I own that 3D rig. You put it in the Zodiac. I don't care if it ends up at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Right.
Now, one of the things I used to love about Jim was that like nothing gets in the way of the shot. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't give a damn. I own that rig. Put it in the bloody boat. Because of course I often find this on a movie set when my AC might be a bit precious about the gear, and I'm always like, listen, I mean, what are we shooting on? Remind me. Oh, it's an Alexa LF. How many do you think there are on the planet?
Right.
LFs. Like, this is not the only LF. Okay, like listen, this is a super important shot. I know it's a little, with putting it out. I know we might scratch it. Right. Okay. But let's just be really careful. Okay. But let's get the shot. That's what we're here for. So that 3D rig, that was the only one above the Mariana Trench.
Right.
So if that had gone to the bottom of the trench, that was it.
That's a separate documentary. Recovering the rig.
Oh my God, that's a separate. Yeah, that's right. That Jim dives on the Mariana 10,000. He goes 10,000 meters to reclaim the red one.
Right.
With E-rig, but it was, but that was interesting times shooting that doco. Wow. There was, we did some pretty full on stuff. I came up as a DP operator. So I've always operated, on the shows that I've been shooting, except when I'm in North America on these TV shows. I'm doing Percy Jackson at the moment, and The Old Man, a couple of seasons of that. And, the union makes it difficult for you to operate. So you tend to take a back step. But I was always a big proponent of the Easy Rig. The Easy Rig allowed me to do things with the camera that I defy any operator to be able to do with the camera just sitting on the shoulder. Yeah. And the conversation about whether to wear an Easy Rig in the Zodiac with a 3D camera attached was a very short conversation.
Right.
Because it's like, if that camera goes overboard and I'm attached to it, I'm going to the bottom of the trench.
Right.
So that was a very, very short conversation that we're not using an Easy Rig. I'm not using an Easy Rig with this thing. So I'm going to lug this thing on my shoulder. So that was a tough show. Yeah. We were shooting, we spent about a month and a half test diving off the New Britain Trench off Rabaul in New Guinea, and that's the tropics there, man. And it was 35 degrees, whatever that is, like 90 something every day, 100% humidity, operating on board, a boat that's kind of listing all the time and in Zodiacs, and it was very physical. Very physical. I lost a bit of weight on that one.
I was gonna say also, what's the ultimate anti-sickness remedy that you found?
Well, the ultimate is just time, right? It's getting your sea legs, right? So it's a funny story though, because you can take things like, I think it's Dramamine. Which funnily enough, my director on The Old Man, Ben Seminoff, one of my directors of episode 5, which is my favorite ed, he was telling me that he takes his kids on roller coasters, and I went, oh man, I can't do that anymore. You reach an age where you just start to feel sick. And he goes, dude, Dramamine. He goes, I was like you until someone told me about Dramamine, and now I take Dramamine, and I can go on roller coasters all day long. It's not a problem. So, but yeah, it's just getting your sea legs. But the funny thing was, on that expedition, we shot, as I said, for about a month and a half, I think it was, test diving on the New Britain Trench, which is 8,000 meters deep. 24,000 feet deep. It was, and the Mariana being 10,000 meters, which is close to 29,500 feet. We test dove there, and then the Mermaid Sapphire, the expedition ship, had to steam to Guam, and where we stationed for the Mariana Trench, which is about half a day's steam out of Guam. And so the main crew went on the Mermaid Sapphire, and I stuck around in New Guinea with Jim and a couple of my crew. There was about 8 of us, I guess, and we decided let's do some diving, some real water diving, and we'll do some shooting on the reef here in New Guinea. We can shoot Jim, kind of free diving and do a bunch of stuff, and we'll get the Learjet over to Guam. And it's like, yep, okay, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds like fun. Meanwhile, the Mermaid Sapphire spent, I think it was about 4 or 5 days, I think was the steaming time to get to Guam, in the worst seas. Like, I heard the stories I heard of that trip where everyone was just literally in their cabins and they couldn't come. Everyone was seasick. You know what I mean? Like sea legs. There are certain things that sea legs can give you, right? But what they don't give you is for most people, the ability to get through really big seas on a big ship that's kind of rolling. And oh, mate, it sounded like a horror movie on board. I was so happy I didn't do that trip.
Yes. Meanwhile, you're on the PJ just sipping champagne, like, oh, this is nice.
That's right. Yeah. Happy days.
Yeah. I did want to know, because this is something that I kind of talked about with Nathan about, was like, what was the sort of, there's a few directors that people say like that's a film school just working for them, and Jim Cameron seems to be one of them. And I was wondering if there's anything, because I saw in an interview you were talking about applying a cinematic mindset to documentary, and I imagine he must have taught you something about filmmaking in general that was valuable.
Yeah, I mean, every day was film school with Jim. I mean, he's so experienced, and he's so clever, and he's got, listen, Jim Cameron is the person who has the most left brain and right brain combination that I've ever met. He can, in a conversation, he can be talking to an astrophysicist about physics, and then talk to an artist about a painting, and then speak to a finance guy about the numbers. And do you know what I mean? His ability to have a foot in all these different camps and speak to the specialist in their lingualese, their own language, is just incredible. And I think that's why he's such an amazing filmmaker, because he's both he's scientist, he's entrepreneur. He's just got that ability to fire on all those cylinders. Whereas for most of us, we're kind of really right brain, or we're really left brain, and so his ability to step through all those camps and then bring a real variety of people together. On this expedition, we had divers, we had oceanographers, we had biologists, we had life support people, submariners, biomechanics, the whole gamut. And that's what Jim does on a film. I was lucky enough to spend some time on Avatar with my director of Sanctum, Alistair Grierson, and it was kind of like Jim was we had a week-long interview before he agreed to us shooting that underwater 3D film I told you about, Sanctum, which was an EP. But he has that ability he does that on a big movie like Avatar, where there's so much science involved with the storytelling, and he's got all these different people, and he brings them together and leads people through this the madness of making a movie, or the madness of being on an expedition, because that's kind of what it is. It's filmmaking in one sense is just problem solving, right? Or the more complex it is, like 3D, you're lurching from one crisis to another, solving the next problem, so and at the same time bringing all this creativity to the process.
Well, and I think problem solving is almost the more fun thing than making I don't know if this is just like the masculine urge to be helpful and solve problems, but like personally, I'm like, I can set up the shot, but it's more fun when there's something, when people say that like constraint is where creativity is born.
Yeah.
Like when you're faced with a problem, that is certainly a form of constraint. And that's kind of where you can, if it's not too big of an issue, that's where like I tend to have fun.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's really interesting. I mean, I know we're talking about the deep sea challenge a lot, but on that expedition, right, and this is going to the heart of what you're saying, Cameron said, like, if this was what would normally happen back in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, the Polo and moonshot and all that, this would be a government-run expedition, and it'd take us 10 years to do what we want to do. We have to achieve this in 3 months. So what I need all of you scientists and biomechanics and engineers and whatnot to do, I need you all to think like a film crew. And what a film crew does, a film crew solves problems really quickly. And I always say this is what I love about filmmaking so much. We could have a major location falls through. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and our major location falls through. I know by 7 a.m. the next morning, the locations people will find us a new location, and we will be by 8:30. And I always say, like, if there's a nation failing somewhere in the world, send in a film crew, and within 6 months they'll have it sorted out. But maybe the director will become the
dictator. Yeah.
But it'll be back on track. And that's what happens. You have all these people with all these different skills coming together to create this one thing. And you never know what this one thing's going to be, but it's going to function and it's going to operate and it's going to be in one form or another. And it's going to exist, whether it's good or bad. Still, it took all those people to create it, and it was done really quickly. So,
yeah. Well, that also goes to speak about, right now, obviously there's a significant downturn in filmmaking, especially here in LA, in California in general is our tax incentives don't seem to be that great for production and stuff. But like, I primarily work on lower budget stuff. Recently been put on a couple higher budget documentaries, and it's so nice. It's so nice to have a crew, not have me have to be the like AD and DP at the just all this random crap where you're like, there's a reason there's someone paid really well to solve this problem while I solve that problem. I shouldn't have to cordon my brain off into 4 places because it saved us $1. Like if you don't have that buck, fine, but like effort should be made to get that. Even the smallest crew member is not frivolous. A PA is not frivolous. They're solving problems that would take you a very long time just to like I said, cordon off your brain and shit.
Yeah. I was sitting around, we had we're starting a new block on Percy Jackson at the moment, and we were having a production meeting the other day. And I do this in every production meeting. I look around and I go, each one of these people is a specialist in the field that they're specializing in, but they're all bringing their A game.
Right.
No one's coming to work and going, I'm going to put in 50% today. They're all trying to their utmost, and they bring a lot of experience to the game. And this is the same when you sit around on in the final production meeting of episode 5 of season 2 of The Old Man, and you've got the production designer and the art director and the costume designer and the cinematographer, director, producers, showrunners. Everyone's there wanting to bring the best possible thing that they bring to the show, and hopefully together you create something that stands the test of time. And it doesn't always happen, but it's always certainly the last 5 or 6 years for me, it's invariably fun. I've done some shows that have been a bit of a nightmare, but I've been lucky to work on the last couple of years, The Old Man and Percy Jackson, where the people are amazing and they're cool, and you have a lot of fun shooting the show, and everyone's bringing their A game.
Yeah. I actually, this must have been at the beginning of this season of this podcast. I interviewed Pierre Gill for the first season.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a lot of really great insight. But one thing that I was actually fascinated with that first season was basically all the stuff I thought was volume wasn't, and all the stuff that I thought was real was. And I was like, how the fuck did you pull that off? And he was like, you make the screen look fake and then it looks real in camera. And I was like, I don't what? To explain that to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's often the case, right, where I'd watch shows too and I go, oh, that must have been shot in the States. I know that was for real. And it's like, well, that's for real. No, that's trickery. Like, I mean, this is, yeah, let me segue into a little bit of the old man and where we our Afghan sequences. That was shot up in Santa Clarita on Blue Sky Ranch, this old movie ranch, but it shot a lot of movies and TV series. And in
this is season one.
This is season one and season two.
Oh, okay.
So what happened on season one? You know, it was Friday, the 13th of March, 2020. And we were shut down because of the COVID epidemic, along with a lot of other productions around the world on that day, Friday the 13th. On Sunday, the 15th of March, we were due to fly to Morocco.
Right.
Shoot the second part of that season on Old Man season one. So we've done all the local, stateside shooting. You know, he starts on the East Coast and he makes his way to the West Coast, and we've done all that. Now we've got to go over there and we've got to shoot all the flashback material that's set in Morocco and the present day in Afghanistan,
right?
Which was the Soviet occupation, which started in 1979. Chase and Harper in there probably around 1980, 81, operating as CIA agents. So we had to shoot all of that material and the present day stuff that was to be the storyline that was set in Morocco. But of course, COVID shot us down. And when we returned, we ended up in north of Los Angeles in around Santa Clarita. Yeah. And I went and visited the locations. I went, okay, it's pretty dusty. Like the foothills look right. Because I'd spent a lot of time traveling in northern Pakistan. Right. And so I knew what the Karakoram range looked like, and the Hindu Kush in Afghanistan is very similar. And it was like, wow, how are we going to pull this off? And Eric Henry, our VFX super, who I'd been working with since the Black Sails days, who's awesome, amazing at his job. He said, listen, I think we can do this. I'm going to shoot plates in the Sierra Nevada in California. And I wasn't overly familiar. I mean, I'd read back in my climbing days, I'd seen articles with photographs of the Sierra Nevada. I went, oh, yeah, okay, it's somewhat similar to the Karakoram, but not really. The Karakoram, the Hindu Kush are very jagged.
Right.
Oh, my God. When I saw the final result of what Eric had done, shooting those plates and compositing them above the foothills of Santa Clarita, I was like, oh, my God. And I'm pretty brutal with VFX and like, oh, that doesn't look real. Or that looks real. I look at that material, I go, oh, my God. He just kicked it out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching it thought, wow, I wonder where they shot this stuff. This really looks like Afghanistan,
like Lancaster.
That's right. Lone Pine. But I tell you what, season 2, we came back. So it was like, okay, well, Morocco, we never went to Morocco. We know we can pull it off in Santa Clarita, but on season 2, we returned to those hills of Santa Clarita, and they had a lot of rain in California.
Right.
This is the beginning of last year, and oh my God, it looked like the rolling hills of Ireland.
Yeah.
It was so green. And once again, it's the freak out of like, how are we going to pull this off? And we did, through the power of grading in a grading suite. Like 5 years ago, I don't think we would have been able to really do it as powerfully and to the extent that we did without VFX. But most of that was done in a color suite in post, and with Eric putting his mountains into the background and doing a little bit of work here and there, but not a lot. I think we really pulled it off again. So mirrors, mate, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a sixth generation Californian, so I'm constantly having to defend this state from people who are not from here and just think we're all a bunch of losers or whatever. But I love this map. I had it framed for a while. I lost it, but there's this map that I think Paramount made back in like the 20s, and it was image of California, and then written on it was what each area of California can play for. So
Wow.
it would be like Afghanistan, Switzerland, Ireland, whatever. And it was just written on every. It was just like kind of a bare map. But I always show people that when I'm like, this state is so gorgeous. I mean, one of the best things we've ever done as America, but specifically California, is the national parks.
Yeah.
Um, Offering to the world. You can come here and see untouched natural beauty in a way that you can't really in most countries. And like, obviously America's huge, but California's got it's so biodiverse that if you spend a week here, you can see every climate, every not culture, but every biome kind of you could imagine. And it does end up looking like other places. And you're like, that's why we film
And
it.
it's incredible. Like every time I shoot there, my partner Lisa and I always go out. We'll do a trip out to Joshua Tree, or we'll go to Death Valley. I mean, I love the deserts, so we're always exploring new places, Lone Pine, and then at the end of this trip, we went, oh, let's. There was a trip that I've been wanting to do for some time, and we did a road trip out through Arizona and into Utah, and my God, Utah. I mean, I've done a lot of traveling in my time, Western Asia, Southeast Asia, all through the Middle East. I've seen a lot of countries, but Utah, I've never seen a place so diverse in its national parks. And every one of those national parks is like a 9.
Yeah.
Why the hell did they give it to the Mormons?
Right. Yeah. They don't go out. They stay in.
Not with the after. I think I don't know much about them, but I was like, my God, this place is insane. Like, we had such an incredible trip. But those southwestern deserts, of course, which California makes up a big part of it, is so incredible. Such amazing landscape and so different. Just wow, out of this world. I love that part of the States.
Yeah, and you get to go for free.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I feel like, especially as capitalistic as we are, we're just like, actually, go ahead.
Yeah.
See what life is actually about,
Yeah.
And I've snowboarded my whole life, and Colorado specifically, I run college ski trips up there, and it's, you get to the top of a place like Steamboat, which kind of butts into, what's it called? I keep trying to say Mormon now, Montana. And you can just see, like, covered in snow too, just all these trees I mean, like, literally you can't see a city in any direction or a town or anything. And it's a very, especially when it's covered in snow, you get that quiet.
Yeah.
It's a very, like, I live next to a freeway here in Los Angeles, and it's a very auditorially different experience.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's I've the two places I've said, my God, this is a loud city, because you really get a sense of what a city's like sound wise when you're shooting. It's like,
Right.
hey, turn over, get quiet on set, turn over, and it's like no one on set's talking, and then you're like, oh my God, the bloody noise.
Yeah.
What's LA? Because it's noisy, man. The other place is London.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, we're quiet on set. That doesn't exist when you shoot neither of those two cities, but it is really diverse, but it's also, it can be challenging, in some ways. Shooting up in Santa Clarita and making that Afghanistan was much, much easier than shooting downtown on a street and making that Hong Kong, which we had to do for episode 7. Right. So we had, and that's just a little anecdote. I'll go into it. That so in episode, I think it's episode 6 that they go to the UK, and I continue that with Zoe, Amy's character Zoe, in the UK, and then Harper goes to Hong Kong, and so we were looking around downtown LA for what could be Hong Kong. And of course, down in Chinatown, there's this one street that I think a lot of people have shot on. It's like, right, we're going to dress this street, and then we're going to have the Hong Kong skyrise that VFX are going to put in. Right, how are we going to shoot it? And my showrunner, John Steinberg, had these references that one of our producers, Zoe Neary, had taken in Hong Kong, and she'd been there when it had been raining. And all the photos were really blue and soft light. And John's like, I really want it to look like this. Okay, cool. And we bandied around some ideas. What about at night? We're going to have all the lanterns, and we have the high rise coming up. And no, I really want it to be during the day, and I want it to be overcast. Because in the back of my mind and the production designer's mind was like, this is Los Angeles, California. Right. It's always sunny. How are we going to pull this off? And okay, well, easy. We'll scrim the street. Okay, so we hear back from the guy who looks after that location to go, you can scrim the street, but you cannot touch the buildings. Oh, well, it's been obvious on the rooftops, right, to put a string here and put one over to this building, and then you put a scrim over the top. And by that way, I can scrim the whole street. That's the easy way to do it. Oh, but we can't touch the buildings. Okay, what do we do now? Okay, we've got to create a truss where we've got these stands in this laneway. They're not touching the building. They go up, and we put box truss across and right down the street, scrim over the top of that. And then we've got to dress these stands out. Okay, so the cost of that is astronomical.
I was going to say, that's a lot of speed rail.
That's right. It's not only the cost, but we only get a day beforehand to dress this. So this has to be built and dressed out and scrimmed in a day. Impossible.
Right.
Like, just not possible. Okay. Right. Here's an idea. So on Percy Jackson season 1, I was introduced to grip clouds, and grip clouds are effectively these oblong balloons, and you fill them full of helium, and they're white, so you can put them up against the sun, and the light will be diffused, or you can put a solid or a big black piece of material on one side, and you can use it as negative.
Right.
And you kind of float these things in and around the set, and they're really amazing, quite incredible devices. But helium's really expensive at the moment,
and there was a shortage like a couple of years. I remember many DPs complaining like, we can't do them because there's no physical way to get the helium.
Yeah, and so you can get helium at the moment, but for some reason, there's a shortage of it, and so it's really expensive. And so, but it's like, okay, this is a cheaper, and it's doable. We can do this the day before, they actually come in, on the day, because they inflate and then they go up pretty quickly. And so what I had to do, I think it was about 120-foot stretch of laneway. And so I needed, there were 20 buys. And so I'd had 6 of these things. So then what did I say? We filmmakers, we lurch from one crisis to another.
Yeah.
So then on the day, we had this agreement with the dude, sorry, I'm not going to say the dude because that's Jeff. And there's only one dude.
Right.
Who was responsible for this location. And he said, well, you can only put 2 of them up at a time. And they cannot touch the sides of the buildings, right? That's cool. We've got strings. We'll dress the strings out, or we'll paint them out later in VFX. But 2? But we had an agreement that we could put 6 up. No, you can only put 2, and it's so in situations like that. I'm normally, as a DP, you have to be very political, right? You've got to be able to play politics above you with the director and the producers, invariably to get what you want, which is invariably for the best of the show, what you think is the best thing for the show. But you got to play politics, and you got to play politics below you as well, because you got to have a crew that works for you, and you want them to do their best work, and so it's all politics. But when it comes to something like this, on a fairness level, I've got this kind of fairness meter. Right. If I think things are really unfair or a little kind of corrupt or fucked up, my politics kind of goes up.
Right. I'm the
And
same
I'm
way.
like, I'm not the right person to negotiate with this guy. If I get involved in this,
Arbitrary constraints
yeah,
can really get fucked.
yeah, that's right. So I'm like, I need to step away. But my key grip, Sean Patrick Crowell, he is man, he could. I've got to be careful what I say here. He could talk you into doing something. The kind of things that you used to be able to say you can't say anymore. Like he could talk anyone into doing anything.
Right.
He's got a face, a gorgeous face, and he smiles and he melts your heart. And he's talked me into some things on set, that no other key grip on the planet would talk me into.
Right.
He's got velvet in his mouth, and it's like, Sean, I've got a job for you, bro. So you need to sweet talk this guy with our locations manager into, I've got to get as many of these balloons up as I possibly can.
Right.
And if there's anyone that can do it, it's you. Go to work.
Nice.
So I think in the end, he talked this guy into putting 4 balloons up. He never let us have the 6, but we had the 4. And so then I had to bring in umbrellas and other things to iris, what I call iris down the back of the frame.
Right.
So I have hot light hitting the walls and the set, and through other kind of trickery, awnings and things like that, we were able to disguise the fact that we had blazing sun coming in and hitting the top of the 4 balloons that we had and other parts of the set, and we were able to pull off this kind of soft light blue, soft light, cloudy kind of feel. And when we saw the balloons above frame, the effects pulled all that out,
right,
in the high rise of the Hong Kong set. And funnily enough, I haven't seen the final of this ep, so I graded.
It's not out yet, I don't think, is it?
It's not out,
Yeah.
And I got the presses of the first 5, and I could have asked for it from my producer, but for some reason I forgot to do that. So I haven't seen the final result. I just hope VFX didn't fuck it up in the end, right?
They probably didn't.
That was hard, right? Finding, you finding these locations sometimes. Like the big Afghan thing is one thing, but it's often the smaller ones that become really tricky, and being able to put one location together with another one, and you've got several shots from this, and looking out the window, this street scene is something else, which of course was what we had to do at the police station, that UK police station that Zoe goes into. It was one location, and the exterior was another, and we have to blend the two together somehow to make it look as though it's one.
Yeah.
Somewhere. So
I actually did want to ask about the exteriors, the Santa Clarita exteriors, because you shot that in both seasons. And I was hoping that would be a nice little tie between how you shot them differently, because the show doesn't look drastically different from season 1 to season 2, but there certainly is a look. And you mentioned the grade. I've said this a million times, but I had become a freelance colorist during the pandemic because that was something I was good at, but then couldn't shoot, obviously, as a DP. So now I really, having colored umpteen clips from various cameras and stuff, it's really cool to see like kind of a exact 1-to-1 difference, like ostensibly the same location shot and colored 2 different ways. And I was wondering if there was a difference in the way you shot it. And obviously, was there a reason to go for a different color grade beyond just trying to take care of the green? Because personally, I do prefer the look of the exteriors in season 2, but I also wanted to talk about the lighting too. But yeah, starting there, just like the methodology.
So funnily enough, so season 1, I guess we created a lookup table which was based on a tobacco filter. So we would put the tobacco filter in front of the lens, and we did some test shots, and then we'd put it through our post-house light on, and that would create a LUT that we could superimpose on not our negative, because the negative display pure, but on the monitor, and then we'd feed that into our final grade in post, if we so choose to do it, which we did. So we never had to put a colored filter in front of the lens while we were actually shooting the show for real. Now, when it came to and Afghanistan for season one was all flashback material, but the tobacco look was permeated the entire show. Now, when it came to season two, I had long conversations with John Steinberg about what we could do because now we're going back to Afghanistan, but it's present day,
Mm.
and the older Chase and the older Harper are going back. So let's have a play. Let's have a play with it. And so what happened was we still shot the material on the day with our tobacco lookup table, but what happened after 4 episodes? We were shut down because of the strike, and I was able to go into Light Iron and have start playing with the color timing of some of that Afghan material. And John and I talked a lot about what could it be? What could it be? Could we give it an edgier look? Could we? Oh, let's have a look at a bleach bypass.
Mm.
Let's have a look at a bleach bypass, and a bleach bypass for your audience who doesn't know. Well, I mean, essentially, it drains some of the color or a lot of the color, depending on how far you go, from the material, and it blocks up the bottom end of the signal. The blacks become chunkier or blockier. There's not as much detail on the blacks.
Seven being a famous example of that.
Yeah, that's right. Or yeah, exactly. The great example of that. So so then it's like, what does a bleach bypass look like? Because what it does tends to drain the color from the sky as well. So blue skies become white skies. And what's that going to do with the hills? These green hills. Oh, okay, that kind of helps with that. But it's taking the color away. What if we do a bleach bypass, but we put the color back into the sky? So there's a little bit of blue in the sky. And we played with a bunch of things. And then in the end, we knew that we had to deal with the green hills, but we wanted a slightly different look, but we didn't want a huge departure from season one. So it is a slightly different look. And you've got the colorist eye, that it's a different look. But we didn't. The thing with the old man, with everything we do, it has to be the word grounded is always hovering above what we do. It's got to be grounded. It can't be tricksy. You can never feel as though it's got to feel real world.
Yeah.
Right. It can't. We don't want it to feel hyper stylized, or even things like that we discussed. The battle sequence, the Taliban firefight in the village in episode 3. Let's have a play with reduced shutter, but let's not push it too much because we don't want to depart too much from the show. We don't want it too stylized. And that was the thing with the bleach bypass, is that we kind of liked where it went, but we didn't want to depart too much from season one. So it kind of goes halfway, I guess you could say. And then we add a little bit of noise to the picture as well, or grain. We wanted to feel grounded and we wanted it to feel gritty, but we didn't want it to feel too stylized.
Yeah.
So I want the audience to feel these characters are real and they're in a real place.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a gorgeous look, and that kind of drew. I literally just, I've done like 4 interviews back to back to back, so the audience is going to be sick of me telling the same story, but it's all I got right now. I just shot something in Lancaster, and very small. There was only 4 of us, but we were shaping L.A. desert sun, and it's something that I always struggle with because interiors I know how to light an interior, but large exteriors kind of escape me. And I was wondering, like, how were you shaping the light in such a way to make it look grounded, natural, but still pretty? And you're also not doing the classic, like, Western hot, 49 million K, light at a sweaty man. Were you just blessed with overcast, or were you doing?
Yeah, we got a lot of overcast. It's a discussion that I've had with Dan Schatz, my showrunner, and Eric Henry, and we've been doing show, as I said, We did Black Sails together, and then I did C with Dan Schatz, but
Yeah.
not with Eric. But then we did The Old Man, the three of us, and we did Percy Jackson, and on all these shows, not so much Black Sails, but certainly The Old Man. And funnily enough, now Percy Jackson has this thing that it's, as I said, it's got to feel grounded. And we often get into this fix or conundrum about how we do exteriors and how we photograph exteriors. And often, especially in Vancouver on Percy Jackson, where the weather is really bad, often,
Right.
that you've got to do some of the stuff on stage, and it's like what looks real, you know. And with The Old Man, when we're outside with really hard light, what looks real? Okay, so our golden rule is, you know, on stage, if we're on stage and it's got to be an exterior, then it's got to be soft light. It's got to be overcast light, unless it's a sunset or a sunrise where I can bring in a really hard, warm, low light. If I'm on stage, we're not under 10 o'clock
Right.
sun because it's just not going to look real. You know, it's I defy anyone to shoot on stage and have the sun in the sky and at 10 o'clock in the morning and have that look like you're outside. It's really difficult to pull off and offer the audience just, you know, there might be psychological or otherwise disco bullshit. You know, really careful about what we shoot on stage. So invariably, it's going to be overcast. And the same goes when we're outside on a show like The Old Man, and you've got a high sun that's going to make the actors look pretty ordinary. You know, you bring in a half soft frost and just soften that light off. Okay, that's not going to look real for our show. So lucky enough, for a lot of The Old Man, we had overcast skies up at Santa Clarita, but not always. And so when we didn't, it was about having backlight effectively, or 3/4 backlight. So turning the actors around so they're getting hit from behind by the sun. And if they're hit, you know, if I couldn't do that for some reason because the location dictated it, and I can't remember a situation where I had a really hard 3/4 front light on the actors, but it was either we spin them around and we backlight them, we cheat them, or we shoot. I'd say I remember there was a walk and talk with Jeff and Hamzad. Sorry, not Jeff and Omar and John Lithgow, where I said, like, we've got to shoot at this time of the day. Otherwise, it's, you know, it's going to look like it's not going to look great. Right. And so you schedule it. But to put a scrim over the top of them it's unless I can make that look like an awning, or that it's the shadow of the mountain, which we did out the back of the tea house. And with when Jeff and John Lithgow arrive and they meet Omar and they have that situation out the back of the tea house where I could make it look as though it was the shadow of the mountain. And I did that with an overhead full grid, I think it was. It's like we really steer away from that stuff. And so it's a dance. It's a schedule, trickery dance. You know, I have no problems with doing a two-hander and backlighting both people. I have no issue with doing
right.
Putting a scrim over the top that's going to soften the sun on a show like The Old Man. It's I tend to really steer away from that. And I think there's one I can think of where I may have had to do that, and I can. Did we end up using that? Remember, it may have been half in, half out with cloud, or I was having a day where it was all over the shop, and I may have had to do that on shop. But we tend, as a rule, to stay away from that, and so as a result, I kind of feel the show looks very naturalistic, but I'm still looking after our actors and making it look cinematic as well. So
Right. Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to touch on, because the average DP listening would hear, oh, just backlight them and then go do that and not achieve the same result. So I'm wondering, were you bringing in bounce or anything like neg, or were you really just placing in time of day?
Both, all of the above. So using, yes, on an overcast a day, I would tend to bring in as much neg as I could, and then some of these locations, it's very difficult to bring in a big telehandler or balloons because there's a fiscal thing with
Right.
a show like this. On Percy Jackson, there's a lot more to play with because it's a bigger budget, but on the Old Man, you've got to dance the numbers a little bit more. So sometimes I might be able to bring in a neg with a 12 by, sometimes it might be a balloon, but it's what I can have on Percy Jackson is not the same as what I can have on the Old Man. And I've got to play those numbers a little better. So you've got to be, sometimes you don't have the tools that you have on a much bigger show. But when it's overcast, I tend to bring in neg and shape the light. I tend to take away light rather than add light,
Right.
so to speak. So it's and sometimes it's just difficult because you in the locations you just can't bring in the tools.
Right.
So you got to make work with less.
Yeah.
So
I've been enjoying a big 12 by of highlight. I like how highlight looks.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll grow out of it soon, but it's a tool that was recently introduced to me, and I'm like, I'll happily put this on a lot of stuff that's supposed to look natural.
Yeah.
It does give it more of like a punchy kind of 90s music video look a lot of times, but sometimes that works out.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. I mean, you go through periods, don't you, where you try things and it's like, oh, I'm really into this, and then you discover something else and you go with that, and you might return later on to those things. But that's the great thing about cinematography. I think you've always got to be evolving and looking at new stuff and different ways of doing things. And I kind of feel as though if you get too stuck in a certain kind of, using certain tools, then you're not progressing the story. And so with the Old Man, it's like every season, we've done two, and I'm using different units on season two as I was on season one, and the technology with lighting is going in leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
So we're growing with it, but at the same time, it's always we've got to stay grounded.
Yeah,
it's got to feel real.
Yeah, I'm enjoying seeing more vortexes instead of sky panels, but that's just a personal.
Yeah.
The LEDs are better on him. you know,
that's what we shifted from season one sky panels to vortexes on season two.
Yeah.
And now on Percy Jackson, the REX, which is a new light theirs, which is really sensational. So, and we've had some new units brought to set to try out, and so it's fun. It's like I always say that. Well, the last few years, the camera technology, it's making, I think we're going to see a new Alexa 65 soon.
Right.
But we had the LF, and then we had the RE35, but I find, I think we're kind of there with
100%
range. It's things like internal NDing, which I'm on the Sony Venice 2 at the moment. The ability to do one-stop increments with NDs, I mean, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
They make a half stop. I always get down to like, I want to lose the one stop of ND.
Yeah.
But it's too much. Like I want a half stop.
Yeah.
Half stop, that seems to be it's much different from stops 2, 3, 4, and 5. But anyway, half stop is asking too much. I can run the ASA, I guess. But anyway, the camera technology, I kind of feel as though it's it's, I don't know, what else do I want out of a camera? Smaller, sure.
I don't know how much I'm at liberty to say, but I can tell you for a fact that on a massive film, they're using the GFX 100S or 102 as a B cam to the Alexa 65.
Yeah, wow.
Or at least like a, maybe not B cam, but like an alternate. They're using it, they're intercutting those two. So it's like not only has camera technology plateaued on the cinema side, but like even mirrorless DSLRs, whatever, I guess they're all mirrorless now, are there, at least image wise, obviously the body.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then you got the power of the grade to kind of match that stuff. And but it's lighting, which I find is just awesome. The different units and the control and
less power.
Yeah, like 5-6 years ago, you'd go and trim the light, or you'd put a gel on it, or you'd throw a scrim in it, and now like we're in as we're doing a shot, we're fading up on this, coming down on that, and that's changing color, and it's a real dance. You got your board op right there, and
on an iPad, not even with a board. They're just like,
yeah, that's it. And so it's so cool.
Yeah,
stuff that we're doing, and it's so much fun. And
I did want to ask about. I have like two questions that are kind of similar. On The Old Man, obviously you're not the only DP. There's two. Most TV shows have at least two at this point. You guys have to make sure that the stuff looks vaguely similar, so each episode doesn't get too crazy out of whack. What are the things that you and the other DP and the director talk about that you don't do? What is the show not employed to make sure that it is the look it is? It's way easy to say like we do this, but like what are you like? This is not the look.
Well, yeah, on season 1, it was me and Sean Porter with the two DPs, and so it was Sean Porter and I did most of the episode, and Mando Salas came into the latest stage to do an episode, and then on season 2 for The Old Man, it was myself. I kicked it off with Dan Stoloff.
And I love Dan. I interviewed him for The Boys.
It's awesome. Yeah, for The Boys, yeah. He's such a great. I love Dan, and I love Sean, and working with him. Setting up season 1. But Dan Stoloff's a great guy. That like I've never seen a guy who's just so does not get rattled by anything. He's like he's
so chill.
One cool customer, man.
Yeah.
He's awesome. So he was a great partner to have on season 2, and so it's interesting what you don't do. Okay, so the speed of the camera, right? Now, episode 3, the battle sequence aside, because that is a kind of own thing and complete mayhem, kind of broke out in that. But The Old Man, the camera style, it's The Old Man. It never moves quickly, and someone comes into shot and we pan with them, and then they leave shot, and then we catch up to them again. That's kind of like if there's one shot you could describe the style, that's it.
Wonderful.
It moves quickly. And so on season 2, we had a new A camera operator, a new A camera dolly grip. And that was because 2 shows were overlapping with my old crew. So I got Bella Trutz to come in and do A camera. And I'd worked with Bella on 3 movies before. And Paul Sanchez was our A camera operator on season 1, who was amazing. He couldn't do it. So I interviewed Bella. I didn't interview Bella, I knew Bella. So I said, come and do this with me. And he knocked back another show to come and do it. Now, what happened is that we got delayed, and then it freed up Paul Sanchez. And so I was now with this dilemma of, oh my God, Paul was our A camera operator on season 1, but Bella's knocked back this other show and already agreed to do season 2. Bella's got to be the guy, because, and unfortunately we're just in that kind of awful situation. I said to Paul, listen, this is what's happened. We've now pushed. I'm looking for a B camera operator. I do not expect you to come and do it. You're an A guy and you're world class. And he went, mate, I just love the show. I'll come and do B camera. That's
wonderful.
Like what a man. Do you know what I mean? And Paul came and did the B camera, and he shot some amazing stuff for us. I'd often cut him loose and say, listen, can you do this? there were a few times that I couldn't, that I had to take a morning off or whatnot. He would fill in for me as the cinematographer, and he would light for me. And he's just such an awesome guy. But yeah, what don't we do? Well, we don't move the camera quickly.
Right.
And so getting the guys into that frame of mind, it took a little while to get that going. It's like, no, I know you want to go far. I know you want to follow the action. We don't do that. And there's another thing that certainly I don't do. And I know Dan had a slightly different style. And this is that thing of, okay, Dan, you come into the show. This is the show, right? This is what we do. This is the kind of the look of it. But you know what? Like, add your spice to it with your directors. If you want to do stuff slightly differently, you can have Dan Shots, our showrunner there. He's going to keep you honest as far as the pace of the camera. But if there's different things that you want to do, then do that. And there's one thing I don't like doing on the old man, and that is if I've got a character in the distance and my camera is this height, because that's what keeps everything straight and keeps parallax all working. As the actor approaches, instead of tilting up the camera, I want to rise and meet the camera. So I always want to kind of be straight on to the walls. I want to keep verticals straight.
Pedestaling.
Pedestaling. Pedestal. Yeah, say that really quickly.
Pedestaling, yeah.
Say it really slowly. I can't. Pedestaling.
Pedestaling, yeah.
You've got it, man. Your grasp of the English language is far better than mine.
For some reason right now, yes, but not generally.
So I'd often say, listen, keep my verticals straight. I want to boom down and just go and then rise with the actor. So there's certain things that I like doing, and sometimes it doesn't always come to pass because the director may say, I need the shot of Jeff coming out of the back of that truck. I want to be low angle, right? And I want to be looking up at him. And I go, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to break that rule. There's a bloody good reason to break that rule right now, so we're going to do it. But there's one thing that we don't do, and that is move the camera quickly. It has to be a heavy, languid style, and that is the thing that we only break if there's a big firefight sequence with Taliban and Afghans, and then you're into a firefight, and it's handheld and all that kind of stuff, and it's its own thing. It lives in its own world. But that is the one thing I would say that we don't do is move the camera quickly.
Well, and it's such a wonderful, easy way to articulate that too. It's like, he's an old man, move slow. That's a one sentence explanation. And I think anyone working would be like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because you get the reasoning.
Yeah.
I think it's probably harder to just be like, oh, we move slow on this one. And then someone's going, but why? Because why is always the hardest thing to, if people aren't on board with your idea, it's usually because they don't know the why.
Yeah.
In anything, in business, in friendship, we should go to this restaurant. Why that one? And you're like, well, because my friend works there. Oh, okay. Versus I don't like their food, whatever it may be.
That's it. And listen, it's not an easy thing to do. I often have like lamp ops doing effects on set, and it's and like there's something about that I've come to realize about human nature is that it's like when the AD comes to me and says, "Oh, how long is this going to take?" And I always say to the AD at the beginning, maybe add another 30%. To what I say. And I know when it comes to I'm going to double the time, or when it comes to electrics, I'm going to add this. And because everyone on a film set wants to please, they want to give you the best version of themselves or the best version of what they're about to do for you. And often that can translate into time, because time is money on a film set, right? And so there's this tendency I find for people to be faster and they want to do something. So you get a lamp op that's doing an effect. And I always say, the first thing I say to them is, okay, what you think it is, I want you to halve it. And then what I want you to do is halve it again. And that's generally where the speed is, right? Because if it's a fast, if it's a rain effect, they're like halve it
Yeah.
and halve it again, and because it's just that human nature. We want to be, we want to be faster, and we want to
We're
be
anxious.
anxious. We want to get it done, and so that was the thing with the camera style of the old man. It's not as easy as it looks, man. And I once, I think it was season one, where I said to Sean, we're doing this long tracking shot, and I said, I want every shot bag of yours, and I want you to put it on the dolly, and I want to make it really hard for the dolly grip to push the dolly. And why do you want to do that? I said, I don't know, because I heard Woody Allen once did that. He wanted this really slow dolly move. So they just loaded the dolly up with all these shot bags. And he said, but he goes, boss, I think we can achieve that without loading. No. I really can do this because I want us all to get into this mindset of it's slower than you think. I know you say, yeah, I got it. I know it. Well, there's one thing I know, and that's human nature. And you got to push this thing faster than we want.
Right.
Let's get into the rhythm now. Let's load it up with shot bags. Let's make it hard. And this is the show, and yeah. So that's the camera moves like an old man.
Yeah. Well, and that's also thinking like an editor too, right? Like, that if it's paced too quickly in the edit, it's not going to feel right. So you got to like drag everyone down to make sure it works for post.
That's right. And listen, and the flip side of that is we all know, well, any of us who have seen the show know that Jeff Bridges is not the old man. The old man is actually somewhere else.
Right.
And Jeff doesn't move slowly. When he has to move, he's like a spring coil. He's like a panther. He's taken out more assassins. Yeah. To think about, and that well, I think it was at the end of Ep 2, was it on season 1? We had that one with him fighting the assassin at the back
house.
And in the house, and there was that one outside the car.
Oh, right, sure.
Yeah, and doing a whole bunch of tricksy stuff with cowboy switches and hidden cuts, but Jeff doing a lot of it himself. But the camera may move slowly, but when it comes time, Bridges doesn't move slowly. He moves like a panther, mate.
Yeah. I did want to talk about him in photography, but before that, just because I had the thought, you'd mentioned, the budget between Percy Jackson, obviously Disney show, higher than Old Man. Obviously VFX is going to raise that up, but even something like Miss Marvel, much higher budget. And I was wondering, I assume, I've asked a few DPs who've worked on Marvel stuff specifically, and I was wondering what their kind of approach is, because their stuff seems so locked down in terms of, there's a consistency across Marvel products that is admirable, even if people do or don't like it, but it is consistent and it is polished and it is them, and I was wondering what your experience was shooting either Miss Marvel or Percy Jackson, where they're doing things differently over there than you're used to.
Yeah, I mean, with Marvel, it's there's often a way of doing things. Like here's an example. When I did the final color grade on my eps of Miss Marvel, it wasn't me and the colorist in the room. And I did it, funnily enough, I did it remotely from Bali. I was on holiday at the time, and we can, as you know, Kenny, we can do color grading remotely now. I've got my iPad there, and it's connected by it on my iPad Pro, I should say, because that's the closest thing we'll get to what the colorist is looking at back in the color suite, and I can talk to them and while seeing the images.
Evercast?
What's that?
We're using Evercast?
I think it was Evercast, yeah, something like that. But there were a few more people in that room, and there were producers in there, and because what's happening with Marvel is that not only are they telling a story, but they're telling a story that involves costumes that feed into into comic books, that feed into shows that have come before. They're feeding into ideas that have to be looked after and that have to be safeguarded, rightly so, because it's the Marvel cinematic universe. It's not the old man, just the show that I'm doing, or just my episode. There are all these other factors that come to pass. And what at first can seem a little chaotic, when you're shooting it, because there are all these other voices in the room. In the end, it's like, oh my God, this all comes together in a way that wouldn't come together on another show. And I'm not sure whether that's because of Kevin Feige at the top overseeing all of this, that's permeating all these people. But there's a different way of doing it, and it's a really fun way, because what they don't have also dickheads working on their shows. They're all really cool people, awesome people to work with, super respectful. So it's just a different way. You've got to fit in. You've got to fit hand in glove with a whole bunch of other people and the ideas around this universe that you don't normally have on a different show. It's just a different way of working, but it's a really fun way of working, and it's always with people who are super cool. I don't know what it is about Kevin, the people that he gets together, but they're all kind of nerds, and they all love the universe, and they're all gunning 100% for this show. But it's definitely a different way of working than it is on something, a kind of a gritty drama like The Old Man. But then you've got Percy Jackson, which, it's a big Disney show, and there's IP there. There's Rick's books that are beloved by so many, and you've got canon.
Yep.
And so it's, there are certain things that you've got to adhere to, but not in the same way as a Marvel show. There's some stuff that you've really got to look after, and maybe that's because it originates from a visual medium,
Sure.
From comic book, whereas Percy Jackson just originates from text. So some things that you can have leeway with that you can't on a Marvel show, but it's but they're all different, right? And the last thing I want as a cinematographer is an experience that's always the same. As long as I'm being respectful of the words on the page, and the showrunners and the directors and the actors, and as long as that respect is coming back towards me, then that's awesome. And I can tell you now that some of the best experiences I've had have been doing Miss Marvel with the people I worked with there, which was extraordinary. It really like nationalities. It was like the League of Nations,
Sure.
I had Indian, Pakistani actors, Pakistani director in Shamin Obed Chinoy, American producers, Irish and English cast, as well as operators from Australia and a gaffer from New Zealand, and I mean, people just from everywhere, Canadians, you name it. It was literally the United Nations, and we're shooting in Thailand with a Thai crew as well. That was just an awesome experience of people. And then on Percy Jackson, we shoot in Canada, but our actors are from all over the place. Awesome crew and the cast that I love, and then to The Old Man, where it's really American centric and mostly Californians, and awesome people. I mean, I've been lucky in the last few years to work on those three shows, because as a cinematographer, for me, like in when I first started out, it was all about the story and all about the script, and as you go on, it becomes about other things as well. And it really becomes about the people that you work with, going to work every day with just awesome individuals bringing their best to the show, and just being really decent human beings. And these last the 3 shows I've just spoken about were all of those.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what you're saying about like constantly progressing with gear. It's like constantly progressing with your motivation. Like at first, you're excited about making images, and then eventually you know how to make images. So it's like, what's keeping me here? And it's relationships. It's always about relationships.
Yeah.
To that note, I did want to ask, because I have it's buried under some stuff. Jeff Bridges' there goes my English. Jeff Bridges' photo book.
What a many Bridges is called? Bridge Eye, right?
Yeah, Jeff Bridges' book with his wide lux camera. And I know you were a photographer for a long time. Did he have that on set? Were you guys talking about photography at all?
All the time. Yeah. He and I went and bought Jeff's book and got him to sign it. It's
wonderful.
Yeah. But he sent me some photos that he's taken with me and him. It was me, him, and Steve Boyum, because he'll often have the wider lux, and the wider lux shoots a 180-degree panorama. And he'll often come in and go, Jules, okay, just stand there. Okay, look over there, and he'll hold it up here and take the shot, and then he'll rewind, do another one, and occasionally he'll say to me, we'll be inside a set, and he'll go, oh, I don't have my light meter. Jules, what should I rate this at? Okay, Jeff. But then I'm going to start doing I'm going to pull my light meter up for a start and start doing the calculations, and I hope I don't fuck it up. But he has that on set, and he's often pulling it out. And he's actually getting, he's involved, I think, in crowdfunding.
I've seen that, the Wide Lux 2 or whatever it's called.
Wide Lux 2, yeah. So
I want one so bad.
Yeah. It's so he's a photographer, and he's been doing it for years, and he produces great images, and it's just really cool to have a fellow photographer on set. And one of the I guess the proudest moments I've had as a cinematographer was on season 2, and so it was episode 7. We're shooting in this it's a set, but it's a set that it's a Cretan, on the island of Crete. It's in church, Orthodox church, that's dilapidated and falling down, and he, when's this going to air?
A couple weeks, like three weeks.
Okay, F7 will be out. Yeah, so I can talk about all the Fs. He's been taken prisoner by Pavlovich, and Pavlovich is going to murder him or kill him, and he's been poisoned. Of course, that's how they've captured him. And he's in this church, and he said to me, he goes, Jules, he goes, I just love the way you like these sets. I just love it, man, because everything's man.
Right.
Dude, right. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what a, and he said that to me a few times. And what a compliment to be paid by a guy who's been doing this for 50 years.
Yeah.
It is, and he's got an Oscar, and he's worked with the best filmmakers, and he's a photographer in his own right. And it was such a compliment, and I think I puffed up my chest. I was 2 inches high that day walking on the set.
Yeah.
He's an awesome guy. He is an awesome guy. But he's got his wide lens, often taking photographs.
One of the great things about that book is I've said this, another thing I've said a million times on this podcast is like how much I love special features on Blu-rays and DVDs, and how that art is starting to die, where now they're just ads basically. And that's kind of annoying. But his Wide Lux book is kind of a behind the scenes look at a lot of stuff, and you can go through and be like, oh, how are they lighting that back in the day? And just like get little snippets of information.
That's right. With a 180-degree view, you've got the lighting, you've got the lights, and you've got, that's a 4x frame. I wonder what that is that they're using. And there's the camera, and they've got these cutters up, and you can get a sense of what the film set was, what was happening on that film set, right? And because as a DP, it's you often absorb things by osmosis, or you watch shows, you go, I wonder how they did that. And you don't always get the information in podcasts or from American cinematographer, and you have to surmise a lot of the time. Oh, that's a bounce. Sure, that's a bounce. They're not going directly through diffusion. I'm looking at the nose shadow, right? How high is the light? What kind of source is it? But with someone like Jeff shooting on his wide lux, you get the information right there and there.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually, I've had an idea for like a month of interviews where I want to interview actors who have worked on like with just, so like your Jeff Bridges, Ben Affleck, especially because he's directed, and I know Brad Pitt's a huge cinematography nerd, but I don't know how the hell I'd get a hold of him. People like that who could speak to cinematography from the actor's perspective. I think that'd be a fascinating series of interviews.
Well, who you need to talk to is Angelina Jolie. So I did a movie
sure.
with Angie a couple of 5 years ago or so, and we spoke a lot about lighting because she's a director in her own right.
Right.
And so it was a film called Come Away, and we'd often talk about lighting, and she knows a lot about lighting. So it was really cool working with her and having those conversations. So
that'd be wonderful.
It's something, like working on Percy Jackson. It's something I do with the young actors, and it's getting them to become more camera savvy, to be saying,
right,
like have an awareness of where the camera is, because see this lens here, this is your fame and fortune. This is where all the people that are watching the show, they're inside of this lens. So if you have an idea of where the lens is, and the other thing I'm trying to teach them about is the light. What makes them look good? What makes them look edgy? So to be able to if it's a phone call and you're running two cameras, throw a look over that camera for this beat, and on this beat you might throw a look past that one, and there's the window. That's where your key light is. So you point to your key light a bit, but just having an awareness about the craft. And I tell you what, they are like sponges. They're like, tell me more. They're so keen, and they're such great students. These guys, they're awesome. So it's a lot of fun for me working with young actors and teaching them about this stuff. But it's also amazing when you watch older actors who are super experienced,
right,
have an idea about camera craft. And the first time I ever really noticed that was working with Sam Neill on a film called In Her Skin. And it was just that. It was a phone call, and I was running two cameras, and there was a window, and I was operating the A camera, and then I went back and watched watch it again on the B camera, and I was like, oh my God, this guy he is amazing. He knows exactly where the camera is. He knows where the light is. And that's where it really kind of the penny dropped for me, that it wasn't just about me photographing the actors. It was about working with the actors.
Yeah.
And it's often in my career, I've said to a very experienced actor, listen, I want you to think about this is where the camera is. Can you throw this? Because not all of them are super camera savvy.
Right. It's that left brain, right brain thing you were talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Some of them are stage actors. They've come from the stage. They've done a lot of stuff there, and they're not particularly aware of what the camera is doing. And so it's that dance, right, of working with them, not just photographing them and capturing the moment. It's capturing the moment with the actor. And so, yeah, so, sometimes it's just in the process, and other times, like on Percy Jackson, I'm super lucky to be helping these young actors kind of discover this thing for themselves, and they're like bees to honey.
Right.
Do bees get attracted to honey? They make
the honey.
They make the honey.
Bees to pollen should be the.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Much better grasp of the English language than I do.
I don't know what it is. I had a Red Bull right before this. It might be that. I honestly, there's so much more I could talk to you about. I wrote more notes than normal, but I know I've kept you over, and you're already over. So we'll just have to have you back to keep talking because,
it's been awesome talking to you, Kenny. And I love the way it wasn't just about the old man; it was about a whole bunch of things, right?
Well, I figured the whole point of the podcast is to celebrate cinematographers and their work, not necessarily the project they're here to advertise.
Yeah,
you got to advertise to keep people happy, but not us, them. But there's like even just what did I like see age even stuff. You know what? I'm the perfect person for movies like Hitman's Bodyguard and what was the other one that I saw? The Whole Truth. Like I'm the guy who goes through and just goes, oh, Keanu in a small film, let's do it. And then I'm like, I love that shit. Like I'm exactly in that realm of I don't try to go too highfalutin, and I obviously don't like bad movies, but those fun ones in the middle are like my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's some cool movies there that probably not a lot of people have seen.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get to those next time I can get a hold of you.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime, mate. Happy to talk to you anytime. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thanks. And I'll hit you up to get a hold of Angelina Jolie when I can start doing the actor interviews.
You got it.
Awesome. Take care, brother.
Okay. Thanks, Kenny.
Bye-bye. Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so on Patreon by going to frameandrefpod.com, where you can get all the episodes, and clicking the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.